Alright, this video is going to be an introduction to the idea of interval estimates. The type of interval estimate we're going to be using in this class is called a confidence interval. And they use an appropriate point estimator as the center of the interval. For example, if I'm trying to estimate a population mean with the confidence interval, I'm going to use the sample mean as the center of that interval. And then I'm going to use a margin of error to form an interval that goes from a little bit below the point estimator to a little bit above the point estimator. In other words, my confidence interval is going to be my point estimate plus or minus a margin of error. And all confidence intervals have this basic structure. That margin of error, the width of our interval, is determined by two things. So first, it's determined by how confident we want to be that the interval contains the thing we are trying to estimate with it. We're going to call that a confidence level in our next video. And the other thing is how spread out or variable our data is. Specifically, we're looking at the standard error, which is a measure of spread for the sampling distribution of the point estimate that we're using to build our interval on. So we have a confidence level and we have a standard error, and those two things are going to determine the margin of error, which is how wide our interval is. Margin of error below the point estimate, margin of error above. In other words, we're going to have a sample statistic whatever quantity we're measuring or trying to estimate, we're going to pull the sample value there. So sample mean for a population mean estimate, sample proportion for a population proportion estimate, and then plus or minus a critical value that comes from our confidence level times our standard error. So the thing you'll need to remember is that this piece here is coming from our confidence level, and that piece ties in to that idea of probability. How likely is it that the interval I construct contains the population value I'm trying to estimate? That's where the idea of probability ties in. And this is where the idea of sampling distributions ties in. We know that this is the standard deviation of the sampling distribution. So all confidence intervals I can't talk today. Intervals will have this basic structure, and then each of those three moving pieces will look a little bit different depending on what we're building the interval to estimate. Our next video, we're going to start talking about the problem-solving strategy we use when building confidence intervals, and then we'll start building them for means and proportions. If you have any questions on what you saw in this video, feel free to send me an email or drop by office hours. Otherwise, I'll see you in our next video.